Welcome to the Women in the Arena podcast, a platform dedicated to honoring America's women veterans who dare greatly in all aspects of life. I'm your host, Sarah Scully. At Women in the Arena, we harness the power of storytelling to illuminate the human experience. Through authentic narratives, we honor the resilience, authenticity, and leadership of women who have served our country. Our name, Women in the Arena, pays homage to Theodore Roosevelt's legendary speech, The Man in the Arena, recognizing the remarkable contributions of women in traditionally male-dominated domains. Welcome back to the Women in the Arena podcast. I am so stoked to bring in Kafi Joseph as a part of our second season. Kafi is one of those people who is just so fun to sit down and have a conversation with. The first time we connected, I knew she would be a great addition to this show. She's a results-driven leader with a diverse background spanning the military, manufacturing, and strategy. She's also the founder of InRG Design, an innovative app currently in production that blends productivity methodologies with human design principles to empower individuals and teams. If you're not familiar with human design, don't worry, I wasn't either, but when Kafi first introduced these concepts to me, I was immediately intrigued and hooked. What I love most about Kafi's insights and mission is her focus on redefining productivity, encouraging us to align our work with our natural energy patterns to perform at our best. In our conversation, we explored the importance of re-examining common diagnoses like ADHD, not as limitations, but as unique roadmaps for structuring our days and schedules effectively. I believe that conversations about productivity are especially important for communities like veterans or other high-performing individuals. These groups often face intense pressure to meet certain expectations and conform to traditional ideas of what it means to be productive. By redefining productivity, we can help us all find healthier, more sustainable ways to achieve our goals. Kafi is doing incredible work, and I'm so excited to share her story with you. I hope you enjoy. Kafi, welcome to the Women in the Arena podcast. We are so pumped that you're here. The first time that we met, so we were connected through a mutual connection, which I always love when that happens because sometimes those are just the most unexpected and special connections you can make. And we chatted about you coming on, and I was just immediately like, the energy is so great here. And I was so excited to dive into some of the things that you're doing now and some of the things that you're passionate about.
Yes.
So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited to be here as well. It was, like you said, a great connect, and just love Women in the Arena, just that concept, the stories that you have here, and then just more broadly, this community of women that you have with its Iron Butterfly Media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just
Awesome.
really pleased to be here. Yeah.
Well, we are so excited to bring you into the fold. So let's get started.
Am I in the fold? Is
You
this
are.
like,
Yeah.
this is it?
You've
I'm
been
in.
inducted. You're one of the butterflies, or one of the, we could
That's
say
amazing.
butterflies and Valkyries too. That's like our term for the Women in the Arena podcast. So yeah, you're one of us now.
Okay.
There's no going back.
I take it.
So I always like to start with, could you just tell us a little bit about you, kind of where you're from, what your journey into the military looked like, and kind of how you ended up getting to where you are today?
Okay. Woo. All right. So, Kafi Joseph, I am a first generation immigrant. So, I came to the US. I turned 8 just after I got to the US. I'm from Trinidad originally, and my mom wanted us to come to America, as we call it, for better opportunities for me. That was her primary outlook was, I may not have the opportunities to be the best version or to maybe pursue dreams. And so that's, how I got to the US. And then how I got to the military, and specifically the military academy, was was in high school. So I was in JROTC in high school. It's really funny as I was thinking about this, how did I get here? In the past couple of months, I've had an opportunity to talk about our JROTC program. It was wild. It's actually kind of over the top. We had 20 high schools in it. When you're in ninth grade, you go through your little summer boot camp that you do as a ninth grader. And then like each summer you have, built on training. But I was learning about Maslow's hierarchy as a 13, 14-year-old kid, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs and, all that good stuff. But, I've come across some of those friends who are retiring from the military now that we're in that program, and just we talk about and joke about those days about how we were just inspiring each other as high school kids, let alone what we went on to do in the military. And so I would say, this desire to serve and to be in the military came from one, like my mom immigrating here and saying, this is a place that gives us opportunities. Being in JROTC and learning, hey, the military is a conduit by which some of these opportunities are provided. And then having my leaders say, hey, you should think about applying to an academy. And so that's, what really made me go, yeah. And at first, we won't hold it against me. I was young. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, and then I quickly learned my ways and went ahead and went to West Point. So that's, what got me from, growing up where I was to the academy, and then commissioning into the Army as a military police officer, and then just, serving. It was Korea, it was Fort Myer, the Old Guard, deployed downrange, back up at West Point, working in missions, and then transitioning to the National Guard, serving 5 years on active duty and 4 years in the National Guard, and then transitioning out to be a fully fledged civilian.
I think it's the first time we've talked to someone who kind of transitioned out of the military, and it started as young as yours did with a JRTC experience too. This was ingrained in you at a young age. So I'm sure that transition out into a new chapter was just I've never even experienced a life without this being a part of my life.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's and that's a conversation, that we have often. It's a little bit of your identity, and so who am I? Who are you without that? Or how do you foster the other identities that you have within you with the other things that you're doing, right? I mean, this is still going to be core because it's a core experience, but it's not the only thing you are, and it doesn't make or break you.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell us about your professional pursuits since the Army. You've been pretty busy. So I'll leave it to you to dive into that.
Yeah. And sometimes when I, share my resume, I'm like, oh, are they going to be like, what hasn't she done? This is too much. So when I got off of active duty, while I was in the Guard, I worked in consulting. I worked for, and I don't mind naming the companies. They're all great companies. I worked for Booz Allen. I did, things that were very much related to the Army. We were still connected, supporting the Army G3, like biometrics, identity management things. And then I actually went on orders. We were, our unit was set to deploy. Then we didn't deploy. Then they took part of my unit, but not the other. And so during that time that I was on orders, I went back to the captain's career course, became a logistician instead of, being a military police officer. And that detail is important because now that I'm a logistician with my full-fledged logistician, schooling, I went to Dubai. I had a friend that worked for a logistics company. I was like, bro, you are a logistician now, and we need your help. So I went to Dubai, satisfying a 6-year in the works manifestation of living in Dubai. I was like, one day I will live here. No clue how, but we had it. And so I ran a cross-docking warehouse there. So we were still supporting the government, supporting troops. We were moving things in and out of Afghanistan. So my team and project moved supplies and equipment in, and other teams were moving as we were doing kind of a bit of a drawdown. We're moving equipment out. So mine was just more what's the word I'm looking for? Not durable, not perishable, but just the day-to-day supplies. And then durable, big equipment that needed to come out was coming out with other teams. So did that, came back stateside with the same company for a little bit, and then pivoted to manufacturing. So then I was a program manager, and then led the program management group for an engine manufacturer for Navy ships and power plants. Learned more than I ever thought I would ever know about the difference between the different ships, but did that for a few years, and then pivoted back to consulting on the federal side with Accenture Federal. Worked on the federal side in a bunch of different roles throughout the business, from strategy, commercial, and then pivoted over to our pure commercial side with commercial clients, and had the opportunity to stand up new practices, which is pretty cool to more or less have a startup inside of a big firm like Accenture, and then welcomed different companies that we acquired and brought them in, and then transitioned to more of a chief of staff role, which is what I'm coming out of, which is pretty dope because in that role, you really get to have an opportunity to create environments for our employees, to create experiences for our clients, and then really connect it with our community partners and just bring, be that employer, that business that's really connected into the community. So, just a wide range of things, but just super fun. And then in between there, got 2 master's degrees. And I say it that way because I thought really long and hard about the first one. I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to do an MBA. I don't systems engineering. That sounds good. I do a lot of project management. It's like a leveled up version of it. It'll be great. And then when I finished it, I switched companies. And then my new boss was like, you should get your MBA. And I was just like, I just finished school. Okay, fine. So yeah.
But that's why you're a great chief of staff, because you've done so many things that just managing a ton of moving parts at once is like 100% up your alley.
Yeah.
So I want to dive into what you've created, and I'll let you kind of explain that, but it's really cool and exciting. So tell us about the creative project that you've had.
Talking about energy by design.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, this is great. So I am coming off of a 6-month sabbatical. And so rolling into the front end of those 6 months, I took the time off because I had, and I'm super open, sharing openly on a lot of platforms and different spaces. I got a late in life ADHD diagnosis. So I'm like handling, all the things at work, had a few things happening personally, like a fire in my home and some other stuff compounded with like, hey, you got ADHD, which is a really interesting diagnosis to have because it's not like an illness diagnosis where it comes out of nowhere. It becomes this, you have a thing that you've had your whole life and now things make sense or you're making sense of, you're trying to figure it out. And so in parallel with that, I have been into human design, which is just kind of a self-awareness tool that takes what I like to call a lot of the ancient wisdoms, like the chakra system, I Ching, Kabbalah, planetary alignment, aka astrology. It just kind of says, hey, this is who you're designed. This is how you're designed and what your energy looks like. And so I had this hypothesis around learning about my ADHD and understanding my energy cycles. Like, what if we could marry these things and help people kind of redefine what productivity looks like for them? And so on my sabbatical, putting that idea together was like, what if this could be an app? What does this look like? Had people say, sounds really cool. If you're doing that, you're a founder now. And then went, oh, okay, I'm a founder. I don't know what I'm doing. So I applied for a few accelerators and got accepted to one. And so had been working on that and am actively working on just creating, in this case, something that gives you personal energy forecasts so you can understand when and where you could be productive and adjust like accordingly, right? So that as an element like that is just a way to bring forth, like for me, it's about creating tools that are human design informed to help people realize their potential, their growth, and just kind of redefine productivity. And so this is an ADHD app, but it can be, anything. And so a couple other things that I'm doing are just like coaching people on, hey, what do you want your next chapter to look like? Which is so key as people are transitioning out and taking into account their design. And for people who have their own businesses, like, hey, let's take a look at your business. Let me use all of this systems engineering, project management, business experience to help you look at your business, but like align it with your design to make it more aligned and make it more you, like more authentic versus what you think, the world says it should be. So
Right.
it's been interesting. It's been fun. Tonight is startup school. So after this, I'm like, we're on the West Coast. And from 9 o'clock, I'll be, talking to 3 or 4 mentors in my working group. But it's exciting and it's important. As we were saying, we had this whole lifetime of this identity, and then we've shifted to something else. It's important to me. Like I feel the energy behind this. I feel like it is something that's aligned to my purpose. So it's important for me to see it through and, give it the very best shot at bringing this around and being able to empower and help others too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so stoked and I have so many questions. It brought back a memory of a loved one that I had who was diagnosed with ADHD at a young age. And I'll never forget, we had a close friend who I think he was maybe like a counselor of some sort and kind of had a good baseline understanding of childhood ADHD. And I'll never forget him saying, don't ever make him change the way he thinks.
Yes.
Don't try to put him in a box because the way that he thinks and the way that he sees the world works for him. And if you try to put him in a box, he's going to fail. And it kind of just brought that back for me. So I had actually never heard of human design until I met you. So I want to piece that apart a little bit.
Sure.
So like if I were to take some sort of assessment of my human design, I mean, I know you couldn't tell me right now off the top of your head, but like what kind of questions would I be asked and like what suggestions may that give me about how to live my life?
So that's my favorite part about it. There's no assessment. So we're all familiar with like Myers-Briggs and just the different indicators, like their strength finders and everything else. And those things are based on what you think you are and how you think you present. Human design, it literally just takes your birth information and then maps it out with an overlay. So it's like a super wisdom, right, of the things that I mentioned and overlays and goes from there. And so what I love, like when I talk to folks, I'm like, now since I've gotten into it, people will ask me for career advice. Some of my counselees will ask me to mentor them. Like, you've known me now, right? You know me, you trust me. I'm gonna ask you to do something a little woo. Let me get your chart, because what I would recommend that you do in this business scenario or this work scenario may not be aligned to who you are. And so my favorite thing to tell people is like, it's not asking you to believe anything, it just is. And so a lot of people are blown away when we do the chart and they read it and they're like, this is insane. This is me to a nutshell. Like, how could you even know this? And so I've used it in that way. When I'm talking to folks about like their career aspirations or the next chapter or the pivot, that kind of work, we have a conversation where I ask them about their background. I ask them about their goals. I ask them about what motivates them, what feels great, all of those things. And then I run their charts. And even if I know them and I've known their chart, I try not to look at it, because what's fun is to see the innate things come out. Like I had someone that I talked to just this morning, we were doing an update and he's like, everything, the themes were around leadership and like making an impact and like having this obsession to make an impact for other people. And it's all in his design. And it was like mind blowing. It's in your design.
Yeah.
If you feel this drive to make an impact, it's because you're designed to, right? And so that's the fun part about it, is just kind of discovering that. And I think the other thing that I enjoy about it is that some people come into it and go, I don't want to be pigeonholed. And I say to them, you are thinking that because currently you are doing something that's not aligned.
Right. You think that everything is going to pigeonhole you because you've been forcing yourself into a mold your whole life.
That's right. And so then when you take words that you're just having a conversation with someone and these themes arise and then they actually overlay with your design, it's kind of this liberation, this permission. Oh my gosh, I always knew I was this person. I just didn't have something to kind of validate it, right? And it's not a user manual. It's more of a discovery treasure map guide, because one's life theme could be, mine is to lovingly, I say it's to lovingly help people get their stuff together, their ish together. And that's mine, and I'm doing it in this way. But if I were a super finance nerd, I might be doing it by helping them financially get themselves together. Or if I were, a gym rat, I might be doing it by helping them physically get themselves together. And so the theme, whatever it is that you discover, is in no way pigeonholing. It very much aligns to the things that you can align it to, the things that you're naturally drawn to anyways. Yeah.
I like the point you made too about how it's not an assessment. Whenever I do assessment tools, I'm like, am I just answering how I wish I was? Do I wish I was really organized, or am I?
Right.
There's a degree of like bias or like wishful thinking when you're just self-reporting on things. And it's kind of interesting too. Like my mind also went to the idea of like, we look at the brain and we're like, okay, you have these chemicals in your brain, which is probably going to cause you to behave this way. And with this, it's like, okay, well, this is how you were made. And so
Mm-hmm.
you probably have tendencies to do this. So, I mean, it is kind of like scientific in
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah.
So with your app, like, if you met me and we just, we're making up a situation of like what my results were with the human design concept, like what kind of suggestions could you give me to live a more productive life?
Yeah, so this is fun because we're in proof of concept. And so literally, each week it's like, oh, this might be how we modify it. So right now, the way that we're looking at it is, and we're focused on folks with ADHD. I think there'll naturally be other applications, but that's what we're focused on. So right now, a lot of ADHD apps or tools are very rigid. It's like, here's a to-do list, and like here's some things to like make me help you stay on task, right? The premise, if I were to do like a X for Y story, is if you're planning your day and you're looking at the weather and you were hoping for a beach day, but now it's rainy, you know that the rain is coming, you're adjusting your activities for the day, and you may be bummed, but you're not like actually expecting to go out and lay in the sun because you know that there is no sun, right? And so what we're doing, because we understand someone's human design, there's a way to see with the transit and what else is happening in the world, what energy fluctuations you'll have, like,
Hmm.
so what will be amplified for you. And so we're giving people a personal energy forecast. And so it's like, similarly, if I know that today I will not have mental clarity, I'm actually going to be pretty tired, the AI in the app can then suggest, based on the tasks that you kind of had laid out or available, it can go, hey, today's not really, it's cloudy mentally for us today. So why don't we do these lower level tasks instead and put these off for tomorrow when you'll have more mental clarity or when you'll have more of a boost of energy, right? And so that's what we're working through and we're super excited about. There are APIs that already exist in human design for us to be able to do those calculations, but never before has someone, served it up in a way where it's like, this is your forecast for the next few hours, the next few days, the 10-day outlook for you to kind of look ahead at that. So, and I think for me, and I think anyone can relate to this, there are days where like, I was super productive today. I feel amazing. I'm going to do the same thing again tomorrow. And then you wake up, you're like, I don't know, I feel like, and especially for achievers, you're like, what happened? I can't do anything.
Yeah.
And maybe if you had a forecast, you would have seen that was coming
Yeah.
and been okay with it, right?
Yeah.
So.
I think recently it seems like we've had a lot of really good conversations on the podcast, and we're having another one on Friday that I'm excited about that kind of center around like looking at productivity and
Mm.
how your body is performing in a different way and not just expecting every day to be the same. And I really love that because, like you said, like if you're an overachiever, you just want every day to be 100, and that's just not, it's not the case. I saw a visual this morning, actually. This also just popped into my mind where it was a graph of someone's week, and Monday they were 100, and then Tuesday they were 30, and then Thursday they were 60, but it showed, hey, your average is like 78, right? So
Yeah.
like on average, like you're performing, above average or whatever, day to day. And so I like the concept that like not every day is supposed to be perfect. It's unrealistic, but just like finding that balance and that rhythm of what works for you. So personally, with your ADHD diagnosis later in life, like what have been your biggest learning lessons in terms of understanding your behavior and maximizing productivity in a way that makes sense for you that have been kind of game changing?
Yeah, game changing. Still learning for sure. I think it's a bit of owning it, right? And I recognize maybe where I am in my career, everyone may not be able to do this, or perhaps they can. And we've just been telling ourselves that we can't ask for these things. But I just mentioned I'm coming back to work, and so one of the things that I did in coming back was requested an accommodation. And my accommodation is just simply that I don't want to have core hours. I will show up for whatever meetings we have, but instead of trying to force myself to work or operate or sleep a different way, and part of that's my human design too, my energy just operates that way. I shared with, my lead, I was like, hey, I might wake up at 2 a.m. and work an 8-hour day before we've even really
Hmm.
started the work day. And of course, I'll show up for whatever meetings are there, but I need the flexibility to then be like, here's everything that you need because I got this burst of energy. I finished these 10 strategies, which is something that has happened. Um, and they're all there, and I'll be on those calls, and then I will be back later. And there's a company, I think it's called Ultranauts, that hires like 75% of their folks are neurodiverse. And those are the kinds of tactics they employ. Like these are, we talk about ADHD and the family member, not changing them. Like we may operate in different ways and have this hyper focus that allows us to push through. But then when you try to conform to, okay, the day has to be this long, then you get lower performance because now, this person has, in the case I just gave you, worked an 8-hour day. And then just because we're sitting around trying to trudge through the rest of the day. So I think that's the thing I'm learning. And, I'm experimenting with it. I mean, it's how I've been operating. Anyways, the difference is I've been then trying to sit through the rest of the day versus being like, no, you did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be also kind of a knock at your self-esteem when you feel like your life has to be rigid like that. I mean, I resonate with the like waking up at 2 a.m. and just randomly. I'm a notorious like I'll just have one night a week where I'll just like work until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
and I don't know why my energy goes up then, but it
Let
just
me
does.
do your human design. There might be something there.
There's probably something there. And I remember for a while feeling kind of like self-conscious about that. Like I was like, oh no, I should be going to bed at 9 and waking up at 5 and like all the things. And some days I do that, and some days I don't. And I've just tried recently to like give myself grace and be like, look, this is when I'm ready and this is when the energy is coming, so I just need to like lean into that and get my shit done. So that's super interesting. And I just love, I know we talked about this previously, your outlook on the fact that like a diagnosis is not a like a negative thing. If anything, it's a roadmap for your life. It actually can give you a lot of information on how to live your life better and just more tools in your toolkit. And I think for a while we've looked at so many diagnoses like ADHD, autism, depression, anxiety, all these things as this barrier, but it's really just it's just the roadmap of your brain.
Yep, that's right. And I have a therapist. Everyone should have a therapist. I have a therapist, and she doesn't love diagnoses, like because she doesn't want anyone to ever become the identity of the thing, right? But she says that they're useful because then you know what it is that you're dealing with, right? And so we would joke about it. She's like, as a woman, if you didn't know what PMS was and we couldn't call it something, there's a certain time every month that you think that you are an insane person.
It'd be
and what's
freaking
going on?
scary.
If you didn't have something to name it or at least to anchor to, and then from there to decide what to do. So that's how I feel about it. Is that okay? Now I understand why I operate this way, and then overlay just understanding my energy through human design has made it a lot easier for me to accept. Like, hey, okay, this is how I work, and it's okay. Yeah.
Do you think that I know it's different for everybody, but I'm going to kind of lean into our primary audience, which would be adult women. Do you think there are common indicators of adult ADHD for women that are more common?
Yeah, so I will preface this with I am not an ADHD researcher or a medical professional.
Neither am I.
But my deep dives and hyper focus down the ADHD TikTok rabbit hole has indicated that there are women, young girls, when ADHD was getting diagnosed, it looks differently in young boys than it does in young girls, so it gets missed. And then we're typically these gifted, high achiever, they have the ones that are like, if you were in the gifted classes and you're, high achiever and now you can't figure out how to get your life together, clap your hands, right? And it skews women. So I think that, yes, there'll be patterns there. I also think, because I was having this conversation, it was this morning in the gym with one of my neighbors, that we were saying, well, does this generation of millennials and Gen Z, is ADHD more pervasive? And so I have also watched some researchers share that there's a difference between like the distractedness that does come from what we've grown up with social media, phones, everything else, and the disruptions that we get from the dopamine cycles and ADHD, and to confuse them. But some of those things do overlap. And so that's where I go back to saying, what I'm creating, what I'm doing can have value for everyone, given that we are living in the society where there's that distractedness, and to be sure that we don't diminish or, just kind of say, well, everyone has some kind of version of ADHD. Yes, we all are living in a very distracted society, and it's very different and it looks different for each person, even, in the group of ADHDers. how it presents and how people cope and deal or live with it. So
Yeah.
I'll say thrive instead of cope.
Thrive. Yes. I like the word thrive. Yeah. I always wonder that too with ADHD, depression, like so many things. It's like as the world's changing, there's so many things that are making people maybe manifest behaviors that would indicate a diagnosis. And then we're also getting better at diagnosing these things. And it's like two things are happening at once. And it's important to not, I guess, just like label that behavior as a diagnosis blindly. But what advice would you have for creating? I think it's so cool that you've created something that was born out of, something that you were grappling with, like, a new chapter in your life and kind of viewing your roadmap of your brain and your behavior and your productivity. I always like to say there's no perfect time to create. I think everybody's like, I want to write a book one day or I want to learn how to play the piano. But it's like, when the hell do you ever find the time to do something like that? And so what advice would you give to someone who maybe has this idea on like the tip of their tongue or this kind of concept in their brain of like actually putting it into action and executing it?
It's going to sound cliche, and it is just really just to do it, right? And I think sometimes for people, the decision or the delay is a concern. Maybe it's centered in perfectionism. Maybe it's centered in fear, right? And it's just to just do it, just get started, because it's not going to look like what you started with anyways. So if you're worried about whatever you have right now not being the thing, that's okay. Creating is an iterative process, and it should be that way. And so if you just get started, the closer you are to, going through the iterations and being where you are, getting to where you would like to be. So I would say to just go ahead and get started is the first thing. And if you don't know how to get started, we live in an incredible day and age where you can quite literally, you don't even have to search it. You can just quite literally go to your nearest AI buddy and say,
hello, I want to make an app.
Right. Literally just say, this is what I'd like to do. I can't tell you how many courses I've created for myself on that. I'm like, I want to understand how to design. I have 2 hours. Give me video clips and only from these kinds of sources, and 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Something I've been doing recently is if I'm in the car while I'm parked, I do this, but I will type into ChatGPT, like, if there's just something random, it could be the most random thing. It could be like the weather. Like, I want to understand, why the sky looks like this. I'll type it into ChatGPT and have it read it out loud to me. And it'll be for like 10 minutes and I'll just drive and listen and get this little info session on this random topic that popped into my brain, and I can choose the voice of the person saying it too.
And then try this next time. This is my favorite thing to do since I've learned to ask it to explain it to you as a 5-year-old.
Oh my
God.
God.
Then like a high schooler, and then like and then a college student, and then a PhD. It's wild.
What?
It's fun because then when you
I didn't even think about that.
It's so cool. I'm nerding out with you on this, but just to do that. And then you just see the progression of like, oh, okay. And then there's a point where you're like, nope, I don't. That part I didn't understand. So yeah, that's great.
That's so funny. The possibilities are endless with ChatGPT and AI. But anyways, so looking ahead, what are your goals with making this come to life? Like, if you could kind of look ahead 5 years from now and kind of dream and vision sesh that out, what would it look like?
I went because I was like, oh, I'm just trying to make it 2 years.
I know, right? Just trying to make it to next week.
Yeah. Wow. This is great. I have the vision statement of this global movement to empower people to redefine productivity. Perhaps it's a community, perhaps it's a collective, perhaps it's just stories of the people that I've engaged with that are like, this has changed my life. I don't know. I really haven't thought of that. I'm so tactical right now in terms of like, let's get through it. The thing I will say is I'm committed to seeing this through. I don't know if you've ever read The Alchemist.
Oh my girl, you are just touching my heart. I read it once a year.
That's great. I have read it 3 times probably in the last 4 or 5 years.
It's a good reread at different parts of your life.
It is. It really is. And like the first time I read it, I got through like the first page. Like I was like, I can't finish. I wasn't ready. And so there's that premise of like your personal legend, and there's a part in it where, the heart of one of the characters kind of goes dim. The heart's like, I don't want to cause you any pain. So it kind of goes quiet. And so I really feel so strongly about and so passionately about this being something that the world needs and that I need to bring forth. I just kind of give my heart a pep talk. I'm like, please don't go quiet.
Yeah.
We're working on it. We're there. And so right now it's just focused on getting through this course for the accelerator that I'm in for the next few months until May, and really putting a concerted effort into connecting with people and seeing if this is something that's helpful, right? Like we're talking about bringing the proof of concept to folks, and then I'll maybe go back to the vision board and talk about like what does this look like in terms of what do we want to see. But I think ultimately it's having had the opportunity to help coach and guide people, to finding like their next chapter, their next self. Like that's important, that piece of it, which is totally separate from the app.
I love it. I love that we kind of thought through that, and you hadn't gotten that far yet. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
If you could go back and talk to your West Point self about like something that you've learned about redefining productivity and just understanding yourself better, what would be the piece of advice that you would give yourself at that point in time?
It's not that serious.
I would say the same thing to my college self. I forget who I was talking to the other day, and we were like, God, I took myself so seriously at age 20. Like, why was I so serious? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that serious. And I mean, and obviously, we talk about this, at the academy, you come in and everything you do, it's you killed your platoon, right? Like, right. And so why did we think it was that serious? That's why.
I know, right?
I didn't take the trash out, you killed your platoon. And obviously, so I say it in jest, like what they were attempting to impart upon us is that, our actions and that in 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, as we count down, we will be responsible for the lives of America's sons and daughters, right? And that said, though, right, still being able to find the levity, find the joy in spaces, like you cannot be on all the time. And like if we want to keep going down the Paulo Coelho route, The Warrior of the Light, like that book talks about that. Like in that book where he explores the Warrior of the Light, it's like you have to be able to take an opportunity to appreciate your achievements, take an opportunity to take a break, take an opportunity to celebrate, right? None of those things diminishes who you are as a warrior. And so that's what I think I've learned and what I would tell myself. It's like, yes, it's serious. Yes, you're going to do that. And also you need to be able to rest. You need to be able to celebrate. You need to be able to, commend yourself for achieving something versus being like, oh, check, that's done. Let me go on to the next thing. And thereby just kind of ignoring all the things that have happened and not taking it all in. So yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of moments recently like that where I have a tendency to like procrastinate like the celebrations and like like the moments of just of nothing, or not even nothing, like the moments of just kind of being with myself, being with other people, and just kind of being in a state of rest. And it's like, isn't that what we're all living for? Like, isn't that why we're kind of here? It's not to just like check everything off the list and
we are
go
not robots.
No,
we are
like
not AI.
no, we were like born to be together and have companionship and community and things like that. So it's really important to kind of just take a step back and think on that too.
Yeah, if we're to continue to go the spiritual route, we're spiritual beings having this human experience. Like, are we experiencing the human things, or are we sitting here being our best imitations of robots?
Exactly.
Or in AI, right?
Our best laptop connectors.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have our closing question, which is always my favorite and the hardest question, which is if you could pick your woman in the arena, so a woman who has just inspired you to be your authentic self, to dabble in all the things that you've dabbled in and just be fearless, who would you choose?
Yeah, this is a great question. And it's usually the default is usually my mom. And so I'm gonna take a little bit of a departure from that just because of the space that I've been in. I didn't mention it all, here. But I also serve on the leadership team of a nonprofit. It's called the Emily J.T. Perez Foundation. And Emily was a 2005 West Point grad. I had the honor of knowing her when she was a cadet. I was a couple years ahead of her. And she was just a standout, like just great big energy. She, ended up being a leader in the Corps. She was a standout Division I athlete, did all the things, inspired so many people that were, senior to her, junior to her, all around. I remember getting to go back to their graduation and seeing her. And I also remember the last time that I saw her was a week before she was killed. and and so being able to be part of the leadership team for the foundation is tremendous. The foundation supports women veterans. So we run resilience boot camps and just different things to help women veterans like connect in with who we are. And we run a summer camp for young girls, middle school age girls. And we did our first camp last summer. And the reason why this is resonating and came up for me at this point is that we just ended Black History Month and we're starting Women's History Month. And one of our campers for her Black History Month presentation did Emily.
Oh.
And yeah, she had 2 minutes to present. She had on her uniform. She, talked about Emily's accomplishments. She talked about her experience at the camp and what that meant for her to see that strong leader. And so, we all looked at that video. Her mom sent it, and one of our camp leaders was there. And we were just kind of like, this is what it's about. The foundation is here to carry on her legacy. And to see that kind of inspiration and to see, the next generation of our women in the arena being inspired by, driven by, like, and just being able to connect to that, I would say that it's Emily.
That's such an inspiring and amazing answer. And, we talk a lot about legacy, and I think legacy is kind of tossed around in the military a lot. It's it's like a buzzword that we use a lot. And, sometimes we have to really pause and reflect on like what that means. And when you have the opportunity to actually see legacy in action, it's just such an inspiring, special thing. And like I don't know if I can even think of a better example as that, but it's like it's the ripple effect, it's the butterfly effect. We talk about that a lot here, like those connections and just sharing stories and like seeing the way that changes the world. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Well, I have so enjoyed our conversation. I'm pumped to do my human design and learn how I can better understand my late night 2 a.m. working sessions. But I really just appreciate your perspective on all of this. I think, many of our listeners, whether they're veterans or they're in another professional space, they're probably hard charging, high achieving individuals. And we often feel the need to just kind of show up as the world has always told us to. And I love your ability to encourage people to just understand themselves better and do things that make the most sense for them and not just measure yourself against this one model or mold. I think it's really inspiring, and I have no doubt that the next 5 years are going to be amazing, and the next 2.
I'll report back with my 5-year plan.
Yes, absolutely. We're so excited for you. And as a thank you, we want to give you your Women in the Arena bracelet. We give those to our guests, and it has a little quote on there from the speech that the title of our podcast is inspired by, just to always encourage you to be your authentic self. And we hope that you can wear it during moments where maybe you need some inspiration or need to be reminded how special you are and how much we look up to you. So
this is awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
This is amazing.
All of our guests have them, and I always like to think about that like there's just a bunch of badass, amazing women running around with these bracelets doing great things and changing the world. It's like a little like superhero.
Yeah, it's like our Wonder Woman version. Yeah. No, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
The Women in the Arena podcast is powered by Iron Butterfly Media, a production company committed to honoring the lives of women who have had an unseen and outsized impact on our world. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have a woman who you would like to nominate as a guest, please shoot us a message on our social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe and follow on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next time.